What profound secrets did the children of Nazi leaders carry into their adult lives? To what extent were their lives irrevocably shaped by their family's past? This investigation will reveal the paths they took and unearth startling truths about the period following the Second World War. Our examination begins with the story of Gudrun Himmler. Gudrun Himmler, born on August 8, 1929, was the sole offspring of Heinrich Himmler. Notwithstanding the infamous legacy of her father, who was a principal architect of the Holocaust, she remained his unyielding defender until her death in 2018. Heinrich Himmler reportedly harbored a particular affection for his daughter, arranging for her to be flown to his Berlin offices from her residence in Munich, which she shared with her mother. He maintained close and consistent contact with her, placing daily telephone calls to her home and dispatching weekly correspondence. Heinrich affectionately addressed her by her childhood nickname, Puppy. She was also known to accompany him during select official functions. She vehemently contested the official account that her father took his own life by ingesting a concealed cyanide capsule, insisting instead that he had been assassinated. In the aftermath of the Second World War, both Gudrun and her mother were taken into custody by American once said forces and subsequently detained in a series of internment camps across Italy, France, and Germany. They were brought to Nuremberg to provide testimony during the trials and were later released in November of 1946. For the remainder of her life, Gudrun worked assiduously to rehabilitate her father's public image and preserve his memory. She would become an integral figure within Stille Hilfe, or Silent Aid, a clandestine organization dedicated to providing assistance to former SS members who were arrested, condemned, or living as fugitives. Her deep involvement with this organization stood as a testament to her unyielding allegiance to her father's ideological legacy. We now turn to Martin Bormann Jr., the eldest son of the influential Nazi Party official, Martin Bormann, who lived a life profoundly marked by the somber legacy of his father's infamous reputation. Born on the 14th of April, 1930, he was merely a child during the zenith of his father's power and amidst the atrocities of the Second World War. Raised under the pervasive shadow of his father's prominent role within Hitler's inner circle, the young Bormann's childhood was anything but conventional. However, it is documented that the young Bormann was intentionally shielded from the grim realities of the Nazi regime's operations. Following the war, he was forced to confront the horrific actions attributed to his father, a stark realization that propelled him onto a path of profound remorse and redemption. In a definitive break from his father's ideology, Bormann Jr. converted to Catholicism and subsequently dedicated his life to the church, even serving as a missionary in the Congo and Cameroon, in an effort to atone for his father's egregious transgressions. However, in the year 2011, Bormann became the subject of serious abuse allegations. A former student alleged that Bormann had perpetrated abuse against him as a 12-year-old during the early 1960s, accompanied by further accusations of severe physical violence toward other students. At the time these claims emerged, Bormann was suffering from dementia, a condition that rendered him either unwilling or incapable of addressing the charges. Although these allegations did not result in formal legal action, an independent claims commission, established to investigate abuses within the Catholic Church in Austria, ultimately awarded the accuser financial compensation. Nicholas Frank, son of the infamous Nazi war criminal Hans Frank, has dedicated a significant portion of his life to grappling with his father's dark legacy. Born in 1939, Frank was merely a child, unable to comprehend the full scale of the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. His adult life, however, has been almost entirely consumed by a quest to understand and publicly denounce the actions of his father. Hans Frank, infamously known as the Butcher of Poland, was Adolf Hitler's personal lawyer and later served as the Governor General of occupied Poland. Despite the monstrous nature of his father's acts, Nicholas Frank has pursued an unconventional path, confronting his heritage directly. He has authored several books, including In the Shadow of the Reich, which meticulously detail his struggle to comprehend his father's crimes and their profound impact on his own life. Frank's dedication to educating others about the Holocaust and its enduring repercussions on the families of all those involved, perpetrators and victims alike, is truly commendable. His candid public discourses offer a unique perspective on Holocaust remembrance and serve as a potent reminder of the depths of atrocity that can arise from unchecked hatred and bigotry. Edda Goering was the sole child of Hermann Goering and his Pafferty, second wife, the actress Emmy Sonnemann. As the daughter of one of Adolf Hitler's principal deputies, Born shortly before the outbreak of the Second World War, Edda's formative years primarily resided with her mother at Carenhall, the opulent Goering family estate. Edda's formative years were characterized by the immense luxury and privilege afforded by her father's prominent position within Hitler's Germany. Consequently, she was frequently photographed at public engagements, serving as a symbol for the Nazi regime's efforts to project an image of wholesome domesticity. She was also the recipient of numerous priceless works of art during her youth, including the masterpiece Madonna and Child by Lucas Cranach the Elder. As the war drew to its inevitable conclusion, she and her mother relocated to their mountain residence at Obersalzberg, situated near Berchtesgaden. The conclusion of the Second World War heralded a dramatic reversal of fortune for the Goering family. Hermann Goering was subsequently sentenced to death at the Nuremberg trials for his documented war crimes, though he ultimately evaded the gallows by taking his own life. His actions bequeathed to Edda a deeply tainted legacy, one which she would spend the remainder of her life attempting to reconcile. In the aftermath, Edda Goering sought to live a life removed from the glare of the public eye. She seldom spoke of her father in public forums, yet reportedly maintained in private that he had been a fundamentally good man. During the decades of the 1950s and 1960s, many of the valuable gifts bestowed upon her in youth, including the aforementioned Madonna and Child artwork, became the subject of protracted legal disputes, the majority of which she ultimately lost by 1968. Whereas the children of other high-ranking Nazi officials, such as Gudrun Himmler and Albert Speer Jr., often engaged in public discourse regarding their father's roles, Edda Goering conspicuously refrained from such public commentary. However, during a 1986 television interview conducted in Sweden, she finally broke her silence to articulate the profound affection she held for both of her parents. She passed away in 2018, leaving behind a life irrevocably shaped by the infamous actions of her notorious father, Rolf Mengele. As the son of the infamous Nazi physician, Josef Mengele, Rolf has spent the majority of his life under the shadow of his father's appalling legacy. Born on March 16, 1944, Rolf was raised far from the horrific concentration camps where his father conducted his notorious and inhuman experiments. Consequently, Rolf's early life was largely enveloped in secrecy and deliberate misinformation. For years, he was led to believe that his father was a decorated war hero, only discovering the chilling reality of his deeds as a young adolescent. Despite the immense burden of his surname, Rolf endeavored to construct a normal life, pursuing a legal education and later working as a corporate attorney. In the aftermath of the war, Josef Mengele escaped justice to South America. This relocation to a new continent necessitated that Mengele abandon his son, Rolf. This forced separation consequently made Rolf a figure of significant interest, especially to Nazi hunters, who suspected he maintained contact with his fugitive father. Their suspicions were, to a degree, well-founded, as Mengele did compose several letters to his son. These communications ignited Rolf's curiosity, compelling him to undertake a journey to South America in 1977 for a clandestine meeting with his father. Reflecting upon this visit, Rolf later recounted that his father exhibited no remorse for his horrific actions at Auschwitz, and even attempted to provide a rationalization for them. Despite loathing his father and everything he stood for, Rolf found himself unable to bring himself to betray him. Consequently, he remained silent about Mengele's South American refuge, thereby allowing the notorious Angel of Death to escape justice for his innumerable atrocities. Following their confrontation, Rolf resolved to change his identity and sever all connections to his past. It is widely speculated that he became a family man and a retired lawyer, living a quiet and private life in Germany. Wolf Rudiger Hess was the son of Rudolf Hess, one of the most prominent figures in Nazi Germany and a high-ranking party member. He held the official position of Deputy Führer to Adolf Hitler from 1933 until 1941. His tenure ended when he embarked on a solitary flight to Scotland in a misguided attempt to negotiate peace talks with Great Britain. Hess was immediately captured and was subsequently placed on trial at Nuremberg after the war had concluded. While he managed to evade the death penalty, Hess was instead condemned to life imprisonment, to be served in solitary confinement at Spandau prison. There he remained until his death by suicide on August 17, 1987, at the age of 93. In stark contrast, Wolf Hess did not distance himself from his father's legacy. Instead, he spent his entire life defending his father's reputation. Wolf became a staunch and unwavering supporter of his father, dedicating decades of his life to attempting to reshape the public perception of his father's role in history. He campaigned tirelessly to argue that his father was not a war criminal, but was instead a man merely fulfilling his duties during the 1930s and early 1940s, and should therefore be absolved of all guilt. During his adolescence, while his father was held in captivity following his ill-fated flight to Scotland, Wolf was a frequent visitor to his father. His activities, however, extended far beyond simple visitation. Throughout the 1950s, Wolf established an organization known as the Committee to Free Rudolf Hess, which amassed, garnering a following of several 100,000, which included a number of prominent individuals in German political circles. Through his extensive writings, he advocated for the re-evaluation of Hess's legacy, proposing he be viewed as a national hero instead of a convicted criminal. Following Hess's death in prison, Wolf maintained that his demise was the result of a deliberate act by his British captors. Wolf, who dedicated his entire life to defending his father's role within the National Socialist regime, ultimately passed away. We now turn to Albert Speer Jr., who was born in Berlin on July 29, 1934, mere days before Hitler consolidated power as Führer. Albert Jr.'s formative years were spent in Berchtesgaden, an alpine village that served as a retreat for Hitler. Archival footage from the 1930s captures a young Albert playing on the Riepel terrace of Hitler's Berghof residence, under the dictator's direct observation. His father, Albert Speer Sr., was Hitler's chief architect, and later, Germany's Minister of Armaments. Speer Sr. leveraged his organizational acumen to sustain weapons production, an effort critically dependent on forced labor, which consequently prolonged the duration of the war. After his conviction in the Nuremberg trials and a subsequent 20-year prison sentence, he became one of the few high-ranking officials of the regime to publicly express remorse for its atrocities. Following his father's incarceration for war crimes, the Speer family went to live with Albert Jr.'s grandparents in Heidelberg. During this period, Albert Jr. developed a debilitating stutter, which he later successfully overcame. He initially pursued a trade as a carpenter before shifting his professional focus to architecture. Albert Jr. remained adamant that his career path in architecture was not influenced by his father. In a 2010 interview with Süddeutsche Zeitung, he declined to discuss his father, who passed away in 1981. "I have tried my entire life to separate myself from my father, to distance myself," he stated. Albert Jr. passed away at his Frankfurt residence on September 15. He was 83 years of age. This concludes our presentation on this topic. We invite you to share your perspectives in the comment section below, and ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel to support our continued work. We look forward to joining you for our next installment. Thank you for your viewership.